Welcome to this explainer. Seriously, think about it for a second. We've all been there, right? Staring down a ticking clock, watching the time just slip by, and desperately wanting to achieve these big, amazing things. But what if I told you that a single minute, literally 60 seconds, holds the power to change absolutely everything? No way, right? But it's true. You don't need some massive, exhausting life overhaul to find success. Today, we're diving straight into the science of behavioral design, looking at some truly incredible research that proves starting ridiculously small is actually the secret sauce to massive transformations. Let's get right into it. So let me ask you a question as that clock keeps ticking. What if one tiny habit could completely change your life? We are living in this crazy world of endless scrolling and zero free time. It's so easy to feel totally starved for even a spare second. But here's the thing, you don't need hours. The research we're unpacking today proves that mastering just 1 minute of your daily routine can act as the ultimate catalyst. Now, you might be wondering why we don't just do this naturally. Well, psychologist Dr. Ellen Hendrickson calls it the anxiety of uncertainty. So often we set our sights on these huge, lofty goals, right? Dreaming of how we're going to transform our lives literally overnight. But real change brings unknowns, and that intense all-or-nothing ambition, it can actually create such overwhelming anxiety that we end up preferring the discomfort of our current situation over the fear of starting something new. The goals just feel way too scary. So, feeling completely trapped by this anxiety, most people never even begin. Okay, let's dive into this. There are basically two totally different ways to tackle our goals. First up is the all-or-nothing approach. And hey, ambition is great, but the data shows this method almost always leads to overwhelm, burnout, and, failure. Why? Well, think back to high school physics, Newton's first law of inertia. An object at rest stays at rest. Starting is honestly the hardest part, and massive goals create massive inertia. We just get stuck in procrastination mode. But then look at the alternative, the small wins approach. This is all about building unstoppable momentum. By focusing on tiny victories, we completely break that initial inertia that keeps us trapped. It proves that once we're finally in motion, it is so much easier to just keep going. By focusing on just one single tiny task, we actually tap into this brilliant concept discovered by researcher Stephen Kramer. It's called the progress principle. Kramer found that making progress on essential tasks is literally the most significant factor in boosting our emotions and motivation throughout the day. When you finally check off that tiny task, your brain releases a surge of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. This chemical rush satisfies our deep psychological need for progress, and it creates this amazing positive feedback loop that just drives us forward. To truly understand how this works under the hood, we have to look at the Stanford Behavior Design Lab and the Fogg behavior model. This was developed by social scientist Dr. B.J. Fogg. He basically took a messy web of psychological theories and organized them into one super clean model. He found that for any behavior to actually happen, 3 specific things have to converge at the exact same moment: motivation, ability, which just means how simple it is, like time, money, or physical effort, and a prompt, like a daily trigger. If a behavior doesn't happen, the model guarantees that at least one of these 3 puzzle pieces is missing. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it highlights a compensatory relationship between motivation and ability. Basically, they trade off against each other. Let's say your motivation to do something is, rock bottom. Because of this trade-off, your ability must be incredibly high, meaning the habit has to be ridiculously, effortlessly easy. For example, if you want to write a book but have zero motivation today, you absolutely shouldn't try to force out a whole chapter. You should start with just 50 words. Just 50. The whole key here is to make the barrier to entry so unbelievably low that you literally cannot talk yourself out of it. So how do we build this into an actionable plan? There's actually a proven 3-step framework for shattering that inertia. Step 1. Start ridiculously small. Like we just talked about, commit to 1 sentence instead of a novel. Step 2, choose a trigger. This is based on Charles Duhigg's cue routine reward loop. Habits stick so much better when they're tied to a specific cue, like a certain time of day or a location. And finally, step 3, habit stack. Link your new tiny action to an existing daily routine. Think of it like meditating right after you brush your teeth. You're leveraging established neural pathways in your brain to make the new habit feel completely seamless. And look, it's super important to ground all of this in rigorous behavioral science. A study from the International Journal for Multidisciplinary Research, titled Transforming Habits: Evidence-Based Strategies for Sustainable Change, shows us that breaking bad habits and building good ones, it isn't just about white-knuckling it with willpower. Actually, scratch that, it's barely about willpower at all. It requires understanding the actual neurological mechanisms of habit formation. Using structured, evidence-based habit transformation is for sure the definitive key to long-term improvements in our lifestyle and our overall well-being. Just look at the compounding effect of these structured methods. This brings us to a totally stunning statistic pulled from James Clear's Atomic Habits approach. The research shows that people who implement this exact method of small, consistent changes and habit stacking see a massive 40% increase in long-term habit adherence. 40%. That is huge. By focusing on consistency rather than exhausting intensity, those tiny microhabits grow roots that become virtually unbreakable over time. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world impact of these interventions. When we look directly at the IJFMR data, the results of applying these structured habit changes are just staggering. Check this out. Folks using habit substitution techniques were twice as likely to permanently quit smoking. Twice as likely. Companies that implemented habit tracking and reward systems saw employee productivity jump by 25% in just 6 months. And for anyone feeling totally burned out by technology, simply using environmental redesign, like literally just leaving your phone in another room at night, led to a massive 35% drop in screen time and dramatically better sleep. If you need a quick way to kickstart this and build that initial strength, there's a brilliant psychological trick from Mel Robbins called the 5-second rule. When you're sitting there struggling to start that tiny habit, it's incredibly simple. Just count backward from 5 to 1 and then physically move to take action. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. It literally short-circuits your brain's hesitation and shatters that physical inertia we talked about earlier. It's absolute proof that every little effort, no matter how small, is actively making you stronger than you were yesterday. When you start combining all of these strategies day after day, you hit a true light bulb moment. It's what author Darren Hardy popularized as the compound effect. This principle proves that small, seemingly invisible actions yield massive outcomes. Here's the math. If you improve by just 1% each day through these tiny habits, you aren't just a little bit better by the end of the year. You'll be a staggering 37 times better. 37 times! It's not about some magical overnight transformation. It's about exponential growth over time. This incredible upward momentum perfectly echoes the ancient wisdom of Lao Tzu. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. I love this because it beautifully captures the absolute essence of small wins. Progress isn't about speed. It isn't about exhausting yourself by sprinting up an entire staircase on day one. It is simply about consistency, taking that single manageable step every single day and never ever giving up. And here is the ultimate payoff. This is the entire narrative arc of behavioral design. Success is not an overnight miracle. It is simply small actions, those ridiculously tiny habits repeated consistently over time. The research proves it for sure. If you rely on the progress principle, use the fog behavior model to trigger super easy actions, and let the compound effect do its magic, one day you're going to look back and realize just how incredibly far you have come. You've seen the science, you've seen the system, and now it's your turn. Knowing that you don't need a bottomless well of motivation, knowing that you really just need to make a task ridiculously easy and tie it to a daily trigger, ask yourself, what tiny habit will you start today? Just pick one. Make it take less than 60 seconds. Start it today, because I promise you, your future self will absolutely thank you. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.